It's official. New York Mets manager Terry Collins is calling it quits as manager of the New York Mets, and he's moving into the team's front office. Prior to Collins' announcement, things had turned particularly ugly, and anonymously sourced reports of sniping by players, which prompted David Wright, a former Met, to comment on the issue. Wright stated, "It was cowardly, in my opinion. I have been very fortunate in my career. I haven't had too many gripes, but when I did, I went and talked to Terry or whoever the manager was. His door has always been open, and he's always listened." And Sandy Alderson was very angry about the anonymous bad-mouthing about Collins to the media. What do you make of this chaos?
Well, I hope that these anonymous players took an opportunity to speak to Terry Collins face to face, but based on the tone of David Wright's quote, I think that didn't happen. And that's really cowardly. You're a grown man, and from what I can tell by reading, Terry Collins was somebody who had an open door policy and would have welcomed the conversation. It's kind of like you kick a man when he's down. He's on his way out, and it was pretty clear in the beginning of the season or some way midpoint that this would most likely be his last season as the general manager of the Mets. So you're going to kick him down. And it's funny, like, I don't recall when the Mets were winning and going to the World Series just a couple years ago. I don't remember hearing all these terrible things about him. But now that they had a bad season, they want to point the finger at him. So what I would do is point the finger back at those people, but we don't know who they are because they are anonymous. But I point the finger back and say, well, what did you do? Well, what was your role in this season? How did you try to make things better? Did you bring this to attention? Because I'm sure Terry Collins was not perfect in managing the team this year, but I'm sure he did the best that he can do and probably would change some things differently. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't tell somebody what they're doing is wrong, or it could be done in a different way, they don't know, so they continue to go. And then here you go, you take the opportunity to kick him when he's down. Shame on you. And when he's not around anymore and things aren't going well and you have nobody to blame, then what are you going to do then?
Yeah, I mean, if it was anybody but David Wright making these comments who wasn't with the team for a full season because he's been injured, I would say, hey, wait a second, you weren't necessarily part of the 2017 Mets, but someone like David Wright, who has been the face of this franchise for a number of years, one of the faces of this franchise for a number of years, he has a lot to say here, and he has a lot of pull, without question. And as you pointed out, I mean, if you've got an issue with this guy, who is the manager of this team, you're with him 162 games, you're going on the road together, you're going in, and it's like you go into this season where they had so many expectations about how they were going to do. Terry Collins couldn't necessarily control some of the injuries that they had to their pitching staff. I thought that Terry Collins, in the time that he's been here as the Mets manager, I really thought that he overachieved. I thought it was a bad decision for them to bring him in a few years ago, and I thought everything except for this season, he did a very good job. He brought them to a World Series, and that definitely, even though they didn't beat the Royals a couple years ago, certainly the buzz was back for the New York Mets. And there were times over the last several years where they were more important in this city than the New York Yankees, no doubt about it.